But I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm James.
This is our mid-US Open 2021 recap.
Yeah, it
Correct.
is 2021.
Correct, yeah. Are you prepared to say, as so many have, that the tennis at this tournament has exceeded expectations?
Yeah.
I mean,
My expectations were extremely low, to be fair.
Right, but you are Mr. Dour Sour 24/7 all the time when it comes to these things. Everything is crap.
That's true. No, I mean, there was undoubtedly a very exciting first week. You can't really argue with that. Nobody was really talking about the big names who were missing.
That's true.
There was just a lot of... there were some new faces, people who've been hyped for a long time coming through.
But also people who have been hyped and progressively getting better, continuing to get better. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen many wow that came out of the blue moments. Just like, okay, y'all are leveling up.
Yes. So do I think it's the best first week ever? I have no idea.
We'd have no way to reference
right.
because
but
we
I've
barely
been seeing that too, you know?
We barely remember things that happened 2 weeks ago. So
yeah.
I did find it interesting something that Frances Tiafoe said after his match against Felix last night, that folks are just kind of frothing at the mouth in the locker room. I mean, those were his words. He said frothing.
Okay.
With the opportunity with all these big names out, with no Roger, no Rafa, he's like, would Andres Seppi be out here killing himself in these matches if he were playing a second round against Djokovic? No, he's 37, 39 years old. What is he doing? It's crazy. Like, the guys in the locker room sense an opportunity and they're really putting their best foot forward, according to him. Him being one of them too, I presume.
Yeah, Francis came close to reaching his second slam quarterfinal. His first was at Australia a few years ago, but this is, altogether a step in the right direction for him, kind of a return to some of his best. And actually, he's played, I think, better than his previous best.
And this also was not an invitation to talk about Francis. Like, this is how you get ahead of yourself with the agenda.
Yeah. So
the natural pivot was to then go to the very first day, because that was crazy.
Yeah, and it was really like the day session more than anything. It was really some of the most high-profile matches you're going to see on a day one.
And some of these folks who went to tennis on that Monday saw all of that for $6.
$6.
It was the biggest steal in the history of tennis.
Those resale prices were plummeting after the vaccine announcement. But first up on Ash, 2017 finalists, Madison Keys versus Sloane Stephens. This was actually a very good match. And Madison, for a long stretch of the match, was the better player. But Sloane they've played many times, and it almost seems like Sloane was kind of waiting for Maddie to do those Maddie things, right? Make errors at key junctures.
I mean, I hesitate to say she was the better player because that's how Sloane wins that match. It's a tactic, right? Madison is the one who has to dictate through her nature, right? That's just always going to be the way that match goes, the way it's dictated. And Sloane's strengths are that of a counterpuncher to absorb Maddie's best, and by default looking like she's not the aggressor, not in control of the match.
Around the same time as that match, we had Muguruza-Vekic going to 2 tie breaks. Of course, Tsitsipas-Murray was right after Madison and Sloane on Ash. We're going to talk about that in detail later on. Halep-Georgie was one of the first rounds that I was looking at. Georgie came in here as the champion in Canada, had much better momentum than Halep, and I felt that was a really impressive match from Simona.
Yes, I would agree, given everything that she's been through recently. Kerber beat Yastremska in a first-round match. Like, just when you thought the day was crazy, it got crazier. with Kerber Yastremska.
Kerber had lost the first set of that match and was down a break in the third set.
You talked about matchups being disrespectful when the draws came out. We didn't talk about the draws after qualifiers were placed.
Yeah, we were early.
And so Chris Eubanks qualified, and he was drawn to play who?
Frances Tiafoe. Friend, countryman, took him to 4 sets. Francis did pull that one out.
But that was quite the achievement for Chris to get to the US Open main draw. It sucks that he couldn't get like some budget qualifier. Oh, that sounds really disrespectful.
Wow, that's so rude. No, but there
You
were
know
some
what I mean.
qualifier matchups, you
Right.
know.
Or like somebody struggling. You know, how many times does a player like Chris get to be in the main draw of a Grand Slam at this stage of his career? I would have loved to have seen him get an easier draw and be able to win a round or two. You know, get that money, get those points. The Tsitsipas-Murray match was the one that really had everybody talking that day.
Yes, 5 sets. It drew more attention really for, obviously, BathroomGate.
It set off a theme for the first week of the US Open, one of scamming.
Yeah, some scamming, a lot of monitoring of gamesmanship in the mainstream press, a lot of bathroom clocks informally on the broadcast networks.
This was the best thing that ever happened to that guy.
Oh, it
Because
certainly
it
was.
we were saying, like, where is he going to hide at this tournament? Because where are the stories? What are the stories
Right.
that's going to usurp what's going on with him and the story that just came out in Slate magazine? And look, it's a Grand Slam. Something's always going to be concocted to be the runaway narrative of week one. And folks chose for it not to be that.
You know, the broadcast networks will make sure that a few years ago, match fixing is talked about in every moment of the broadcast week in the first week.
We can't do that anymore because betting is all over tennis.
Exactly. But they'll pick a theme, and that's pretty much the theme of the week, or sometimes the whole tournament, Serena's catsuit, you know, like all these zeitgeisty things. But when it's something as serious as intimate partner violence allegations, we barely hear a peep.
It's like, well, we'll pick that one spot in the coverage. Well, we hope he loses so we don't have to deal with it. But we'll pick that one spot to maybe give it 2 minutes, and then we've done what we needed to do.
So TSN spoke about it. I think ITV in the UK. In the US, it's like, well, let's just let Mary Carrillo do her thing over on the app. You know, not the main
On
broadcast
the world
ESPN.
feed, but not on the main ESPN feed.
So we'll get back to that a little bit later.
A couple of interesting matches, notable matches from week one, and then we'll get into the matches that are left, where we are in the tournament, and then talk about some of those thematic things, those big picture things that happened in week one. Because we are not a daily podcast during slams. That's not what we do. And we tend, even outside of slams, to do the macro rather than the micro, right?
So we cannot talk about every great match. And just because we omitted something doesn't mean that we didn't like it or didn't appreciate it. So
I will say that it's been a long time in this tournament since somebody I wanted to won a match. It's been a while.
wow, amidst all this excitement, and you're just like,
I'm not saying it's still not great tennis. I'm just saying it's been a lot of misses for me with the winners.
Yeah, well, we're going to need Matteo to win this match we're currently watching as we record.
That's how you'll know where we are right now.
Yeah.
Matteo is currently up 2-1, and Atta is serving at 1-all 40-15. He had just taken a tumble. Atta took a tumble.
There were some sizable upsets in the first week. Of course, Leylah Fernandez from Canada beating Naomi Osaka on the eve or 2 days before her 19th birthday. And Leylah goes on to notch another big upset, beating Angelique Kerber 2 days later.
This is clearly a story of folks hatching and snatching at this tournament. We have 3 hatchers and snatchers in chief. We have Leylah Fernandez, we have Carlos Alcaraz, and we have Emma Raducanu.
Yes, so these are youngsters, all of whom have been pretty highly hyped And I mean, Emma is the one who's been around for the least amount of time on big stages, and her first 2 Grand Slam performances this year are just impressive.
We've known of the others a little bit longer, but she's done the most in the shortest period of time.
Right.
And she's made the transition from juniors to pro with the most rapidity in terms of getting the slam results.
Mm-hmm. That Friday schedule was crazy because it had Shelby Rogers beating Ash Barty. It had that Frances Tiafoe-Andre Rublev match, which, you know, Francis is such a superstar. Like, he's such a showman. I don't know how he pulled out that 5th set 6-1 after losing the 4th, but we were treated to Felix and Francis because of that win.
Carlos Alcaraz, he beat Stefanos Tsitsipas. And Tsitsipas said that's the hardest he's ever had somebody hit the ball against him.
Yeah.
Alcaraz is 18 years old. And to have that kind of power at 18 years old is kind of wild.
I see you have there Pliskova-Anisimova.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my favorite matches of the first week.
It was mine.
The favorite?
Well, yeah. I mean, I know why you liked it. You love the boom, boom, boom.
Yes. First strike, big babe tennis, the ball bashers. But when it's done this well, it's so exciting to watch.
And good for Anisimova because she'd been struggling for a while. She had injury, she had COVID. Her year was completely stalled. And she shows up at her home slam and she shows out against Pliskova. And it looked that she had all the momentum. It was close in that 3rd set, but it looked like she had the momentum from the ground. Pliskova was serving out of her mind, something like 24 aces.
Oh my God, yeah.
But you got the sense that should they get into a ground stroke battle, that's where she would have the distinct advantage late in that 3rd set. And credit to Pliskova, she pulled it out. I said in the preview episode, this tournament is the prime opportunity for Pliskova to get that first Grand Slam title.
And it still is.
And you know what happens when top players survive a 2nd round scare at a Grand Slam. Cough, cough, 2018 Australian Open, Caroline Wozniacki.
In that match, Amanda was really the stronger player off the ground in that 3rd set. For a moment, it looked like Pliskova is going to hit 25 aces, have a very clean stat sheet, and still lose.
She barely, had any unforced errors.
It was a really high-quality match. And, Amanda mentioned afterward, I think she tweeted about missing her dad a lot, especially after a loss like that.
She wanted to do it for him and that she hoped she made him proud. Like, that stuff just tugs at your heartstrings, right?
Yeah, and it's really hard to imagine, like, how fundamental that loss is for anyone, but for her as a tennis player, like, how does that cloud the way she views the sport? Because he was so integral in her career and her development. So how do you go back and look at the sport the same way?
I mentioned that Alcaraz beat Tsitsipas. We had on the same day 2 18-year-olds taking out the number 3 seeds on the men's side and the women's side. We had Carlos taking out Tsitsipas, and then we had Leylah Fernandez taking out Naomi Osaka. Those are 2 seismic losses to the top of both draws.
It's not exactly a changing of the guard because the the top players who lost are also very young.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but seismic to this draw, not like...
Yeah. But Naomi, it was hard to tell what to expect coming in here, but she was the defending champ. She won the other hardcourt major this year in Australia. She says she might take some time away from the sport. I don't think that's such a bad idea. Things are not all right with Naomi at the moment.
No, she teared up at the end of her press conference after she lost that match when she was speaking to Japanese press and said, I don't know when I will play my next tennis match. Mm-hmm. And like you said, that might be for the best. There's a strange thing that happens in tennis. We get wind that somebody's going to be absent at a tournament, and we think it's going to be the most earth-shattering loss to the event. But the tour moves on. It always moves on. This US Open has moved on without Federer, Nadal, Serena, Venus, Wawrinka, a whole bunch of top names. The tour will move on without Naomi Osaka while she gets some peace of mind.
In good news, at least 2 Canadians will be in the quarterfinals, possibly 3. So Felix and Fernandez have already booked their spots. Andreescu has to win tonight against Sakkari to get to the quarters. Surprisingly, none of those three people is Denis Shapovalov, having lost in straight sets to Lloyd Harris.
Maybe surprising to you. It's certainly not surprising to me. I told you at the start of the tournament, I said that this dude has been struggling since Wimbledon. He won a couple rounds here, and then Lloyd Harris, who had beaten Rafa earlier in the summer, he's backed it up with a quarterfinal run. That's very uncharitable of me to be like, oh, I picked it. I sort of like, but you know, I'm
like
just saying.
You picked Lloyd Harris to reach the quarterfinals?
I'm saying don't speak for both of us with the Dennis surprise, because I legitimately wasn't. We can't leave this section of upsets in the first week without talking about the number one seed on the women's side.
Yeah. I mentioned Ash Barty had lost to Shelby Rogers.
I mean, you said it in passing, but the top player in the women's tour the entire year, 5 titles, 6 finals, coming off the win at Cincy, coming off the win at Wimbledon. Ash Barty just did not get the job done in her 5th meeting against Shelby Rogers this year. This year, just like Pliskova and Pegula. Like, these two are just destined to meet at tournaments.
And, you know, it seems like the two are friends. Ash predictably had a not blasé, but just like a, oh well, kind of attitude about it. Like, you just were better than me today. And I'm sure she's probably flying back to Australia to be with family at the moment.
I enjoyed Shelby Rogers' words after that match. She was in complete appreciation of Ash Barty, who she is, what she's done this year, being away from home for 8 months. As we know, you can't just fly in and out of Australia. So Ash was on tour for the long haul, and during that time, as Shelby said, she dealt with injuries, rehabbed those injuries on the road, had no home base, and was still able to put out the year that she has so far. And let's be real, like, you play somebody 5 times in 1 year, it's reasonable that you should win one of them, unless you're Richard Gasquet against one of the big 3. And Shelby Rogers is no chump. Quite a few of those matches that she lost to Ash were close. I mean, this is not a surprise by any means.
No, and she occasionally does get these really big wins because she's a big hitter. But she said, like, I gave everything on the court against Ash, and unfortunately she didn't have much to give against Raducanu today.
No, because that was a shellacking.
Yeah. So moving into these round of 16 matchups, Raducanu beat Rogers today. Raducanu is only the 3rd women's qualifier to reach the quarters here in the Open era.
Oh, I see you have here Raducanu like BVDZ. Is that what we're going with here, rather than the whole pronunciation?
Like Botic van de Zandschulp.
Okay.
He is the 3rd men's qualifier to reach the quarterfinals at the U.S. Open. Belinda Bencic beat Iga Świątek in 2 sets. The first was extremely tight, an endless tiebreak that finally ended at 14-12.
Bencic looked like she was running away with that first set before seemingly wresting momentum back, going up 6-5, and then that endless tiebreak.
Yes. Bencic has been in great form here, as all of the commentators have been talking about. She is a fave among the tennis commentariat class.
A fave to whom? For whom?
Oh, the TV people.
Okay.
She takes the ball very early.
She does.
You know,
great timing.
Probably one of the best examples of what she does.
Great redirecting, great gowns, beautiful gowns. Her form is not a fluke.
No.
I know there are folks who are tempted to be thinking that Bencic is filling a vacuum, a void right now. She went to the Olympics with a less than stellar field, and she won. And she didn't look too bothered doing it. And it seems like she's in similar form, playing in a similar vein on a favored surface. This is a former US Open semifinalist, a former Rogers Cup champion. She has the hardcourt prowess and pedigree. She has the skill. One of the skills that she has that separates her from a lot of these players is that she has that super timing and taking the ball early. That can really be a difference maker on the WTA Tour, on this surface.
And she has reached the second week here, I think, 3 times. She's been to the semifinals here. Tonight, we have Pliskova versus Pavlyuchenkova. That visa came just in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
and Nastya came prepared.
indeed.
It's like she was hitting against the back of the plane on her way over.
She's like,
practicing her volleys.
If I'm going to bust my ass to even get into this country, I'm going to make it worth it. We also have Sakkari Andreescu tonight. Much has been made of Andreescu's record at the U.S. Open, being 10-0, never having lost a main draw match here. Her competition so far, aside from Golubic, has not been that great. So let's temper our expectations. And as I say this, she'll probably win the whole tournament. But I'm just saying.
I feel like we're being so fraudulent in that tempering our expectations.
No,
we're
I'm
speaking to the
I
masses.
mean, temper your expectations.
We want Sakkari to win this match. Let's not even mess around.
Yes.
Like, I want one in my win column. Finally. I want Sakkari to win this match.
Just because we're in Canada doesn't mean we have to stand.
We love Felix Auger-Aliassime. That's the extent of our bandwidth.
Yeah.
We're not going to be fraudulent about, like, standing people just because they're Canadian. They're fine. They're perfectly fine. But, like, the bandwidth only has so much.
Svitolina beat Simona Halep in the fourth round. That was just a very put-together match, very professional.
She did the thing.
Yeah, it
was
simply
impressive.
Was not as competitive as expected. Based on the first few games, I thought the match was going to last all day.
Okay,
and it didn't.
Halep is short on matches.
Sure.
She has dealt with injuries that would, even if they're healed, like, take some time to recover fully from.
Right.
To get back to optimal, like, 3-set, 3-hour fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And Svitolina she was ready.
So Krejcikova-Muguruza may be the most controversial of the rounds of 16. So this was last night. Muguruza had been outplayed for the first set and a half. She was making a strong comeback later on in the second set. And then...
Sloane Stephens was asked about the Tsitsipas situation after one of her matches by Ben Rothenberg. And he cited when she said in Cincinnati a couple of years ago after her late night match against Yulia Putintseva, if it's not one scam, it's another. And Sloane offered more scamming expertise. She said, oh yeah, they're all scammers with respect to Tsitsipas, and then went on to say, like, what are you doing in there so long? Do you need help? I'll come help you. I mean, she was less than charitable to Mr. Tsitsipas.
So we were talking about Krejcikova-Muguruza.
Yeah, this is a preamble. So this match happens on the back of this week-long narrative of people searching out the scam, trying to identify the scam and prosecute the scammers. This happens. And this also happens after Krejcikova has a checkered history of possible dipping her foot into the scam waters. Mm-hmm. After she had already had an incident with Muguruza, specifically. So Garbiñe came into this match and this situation with a history with Krejcikova. I watched it. Krejcikova looked to be in serious distress. I'm not here to question that. What I'm here to say, and this is the threading the needle to get to the matter at hand that we often fail to do collectively. What is the real issue in the middle of this scam discourse? In this particular incident, Krejcikova has an issue. Fine, you go get your 9-minute medical timeout. Garbiñe, after wresting back momentum from the match, sitting there for 9 minutes, comes back on court. She's dealing with that. She's dealing with it. But then in the middle of this tiebreak now, at the start of this tiebreak, Garbiñe is ready to serve, and you're walking to the back of the court to dry off with the towel and making her wait on each of her serves. Mm-hmm. That is not on.
No.
I am of the firm, immovable position that in that moment, after you've gotten that medical timeout, you've decided to continue on playing. If you cannot play at the server's pace, you simply move from side to side on the baseline.
And watch the balls go past you.
Watch the balls go past you. Wait for your turn to serve. Hope that something gets better. And if it doesn't, you go get more medical treatment. Hope for better in the third set. Like, that is wild to me that this was not dealt with by the umpire.
Muguruza met her at the net at the end of the match, and Krejcikova was starting to say she was sorry about the antics, and Muguruza said that was very unprofessional and just walked away. At some point, you're just fed up because, I don't doubt that she was injured. But again, there is a pattern with certain players who stretch the rules. Just because the rules are there doesn't mean that they are sporting.
Look, the umpire is at fault for not dealing with this and nipping it in the bud. Krejcikova is at fault for stretching the limits of what she could get away with within the rules and not be checked. Just because you can get away with something doesn't mean you should try to get away with something. There's always this siding with the person who is stricken by illness. Like, it's very scary. Like, she couldn't breathe properly. We are choosing to believe her, right? She can't breathe properly. That's scary. But also, there has to be some room for feeling for the person who has brought themselves to this match in optimal physical shape, who has trained for this moment. And they can't even get the bare minimum advantage of being able to serve when they want to.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy to me. Like, we can have compassion and also work in a decent way. That sounds really cringe when I say that, work in a decent way. But, like, just be, like, on the up and up.
Just be professional. That's it. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah. Sabalenka also beat Mertens. So Sabalenka is going to play Krejcikova in the quarterfinals. Leylah Fernandez is going to play Elina Svitolina. Raducanu is going to play Bencic. And the winner of Pliskova-Pavlyuchenkova will play the winner of Sakkari Andreescu.
On the men's side, round of 16, tonight is Djokovic and Jenson Brooksby. Berrettini just beat Oscar Otte. The German, who's 28 years old, has had a kind of outsized presence at the last two slams. He took his countryman Zverev to 5 sets in Roland Garros. He won his first match at Wimbledon and then took Murray to 5 sets in the second round.
So Berrettini will play the winner of Djokovic-Brooksby. I like since you mentioned how confusing it is to say his name, I can't get it right now. I keep wanting to say Brooksby-Jensen, Brooksby-Kepka. Like, it's Jenson Brooksby.
Bencic's bestie beat Jannik Sinner today. Lloyd Harris, another big win, takes out American Riley Opelka. If Brooksby loses, there will be no more Americans standing in either the men's or the women's draws.
Harris, like so many others, building on his good form in the summer and early parts of the year. Opelka will be the number 1 ranked American after this tournament. That is secured. Tiafoe-Auger-Aliassime, he beat Francis Tiafoe, and he will play Carlos Alcaraz in the quarterfinals. An incredible opportunity for each of these guys to make their first slam semifinal.
This is Felix's second slam quarterfinal and his second straight, having done it at Wimbledon. This match last night was what I've been waiting for. I was so excited to see these two play. It's so rare to see two black men play, especially at this stage of a Grand Slam lately.
Previously, in the last decade and a half, all we've had to look forward to is Monfils and Tsonga.
Yeah.
In this kind of high stakes round of 16 and beyond kind of match. And let's not underestimate the importance of this happening with an American on court on Arthur Ashe, 2 black men, young rising stars on the ATP on Arthur Ashe. It was a spectacle. It was entertaining. I was entertained, let me tell you,
yes,
in this match.
That third set especially.
Yes.
There's such a contrast, but there's obviously so much respect between the two. They like each other, they get along, but they're so different. Felix has been a bit more animated this week. I think just because he's pumped up. He's probably a little tired. He looks a little loopy at times after matches.
It's as if he discovered a personality. It's like, where did this come from?
Right. And Francis obviously is Francis, right? Like, he is Mr. Personality. He's
also Mr. Badonkadonk.
It is sitting, definitely. The kit is cut to complement his proportions, I would say.
Not just complement, accentuate. That Nike went with the red on the back and the blue in the front, as opposed to vice versa. Thank you for that.
There's just so much to love about Francis's game this tournament. Like, it was explosive. He seems to be coming to the net much more often, and he's just using a lot of creativity. And I know that people get down on Francis's game sometimes for not always being technically sound. And, like, I don't care. Why? Why do you care? When you get matches like this, and if he can build on this, it's only good news for tennis.
Francis may never be a Grand Slam champion, and that's fine. I mean, if he can make third round to quarterfinals and thrill people and entertain people, that's also very good.
I mean, I would like to see him win a slam, but...
Sure, but again, we talked in a previous episode about how we're going to have to readjust the way we view success on the ATP Tour. 2020 is not happening anymore.
Right.
And the people who suffered through 2020 and didn't win, their careers will forever be underappreciated because of it.
Mm-hmm. By that, you mean the big three and their slam title haul?
Yes, correct.
So Felix moves on to play Alcaraz, a younger guy than him, who's just in kind of mesmerizing form at the moment.
Felix is still only 20. Still only 20. Next up.
Botic van de Zandschulp from the Netherlands beat Diego Schwartzman. He beat Casper Ruud in the second round. And like I said earlier, he's only the third qualifier on the men's side to reach the quarterfinals at the US Open. He has lost the first set in his first 6 matches at this US Open and won all of them. So through 3 qualifying matches and 3 main draw, he lost the first set and then won, which is really impressive. That did not happen against Diego, and it didn't turn out to be a bad sign. He won this match.
He's going to have his hands full, period, against Medvedev in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, Daniil is kind of sailing through at the moment.
Before the tournament started, he was the number 2 seed, and he was also the presumptive second favorite, and he was also the person most likely and best equipped to beat Novak Djokovic in his quest for a record-breaking 21st Grand Slam title. And nothing we've seen in the first week has undercut that at all.
Yeah, so I still believe if anyone is going to do it, it'll probably be him in the final.
The quarterfinal matchups, Djokovic or Brooksby will play Berrettini, Zverev will play Harris, Auger-Aliassime will play Alcaraz, Van der Zandschulp will play Medvedev.
Now on to some of the bigger stories that have been floating around the play this week. The story that was poised to dominate the discourse was the allegations against Alexander Zverev, because the part 2 of Olga Sharypova's story was published in Slate shortly before the tournament started. Zverev came to his first press conference at the US Open issuing a notes app statement and being really obstructionist with the press. The statement said, in part, "The court followed our arguments and states the accusations are defamatory and false. The lawyers have therefore initiated further proceedings against the source and the author." And later on he said this would be the last that he was going to speak on the subject. Now, because the statement was confusing and mysterious, it obviously prompted a lot of questions, and so we're finally getting a lot of questions in press about this subject. It's been a long time coming. The questions are, in which jurisdiction did you go to court? Which court ruled what? What does it mean that the courts followed your arguments? What does that mean? When you say further proceedings are going against the source and the author, is the source Olia? Is the source the media outlet Slate? Is it Racket Magazine? Are you suing Ben Rothenberg? And again, in which jurisdiction are these things going on?
It seems that it's just Germany so far.
Right. And so, obviously, not knowing the German legal system very well, the questions I have are, well, what does that mean? Like, has there actually been a hearing on the subject? Did you ask for an injunction? Was an injunction granted, if that is such a thing in Germany? And he seems very poorly equipped to be answering these questions. It is shocking that these accusations have been out for nearly a year now. You come to press with a statement that is obviously crafted by lawyers and or a PR firm, and you're asked questions about it, and you are stumped. Like, you don't even seem to know what's in the statement.
It's like, well, what do you mean? I was just very clear. Essentially, the court said I'm innocent. That's how he presented it.
So if you are pleading the Fifth Amendment, and again, I know that's not a thing in Germany, are you saying you're not answering so you don't incriminate yourself? Because you said it was the last you were going to speak on it, but you're answering follow-up questions here. Very badly, mind you.
I think it's entirely possible that it's complete ignorance brought on by
Comfort.
a sense of invincibility.
Yes.
That's what this is. He feels untouchable. And whoever it is that's around him, whether it's his father, his family, his PR team, his coaches, whoever is incubating him, is feeding him these lines of what to say. There's nothing to worry about. Just go about your business. Like, these people are all haters.
Right.
Alexander.
Oh, they're trying to wipe the smile off your face. Remember
Exactly.
that? But it speaks to how little he has actually been pressed on the issue. All year, German media has been issuing puff pieces. They, some German outlets act basically as a PR arm of the Zverev empire. ESPN has barely made a mention of it in the US. The average tennis fan doesn't even know these allegations exist in most countries.
I have yet to see a tennis player touch it.
But, right.
Right? Like, that is the craziest part to me.
I mean, they've acknowledged that they're aware. Like, some have been asked point blank, but obviously people are saying, well,
right, but since the second story came out.
Yeah.
Crickets.
And you wonder if anyone has been instructed on how to answer those questions, especially if the ATP is trying to create some sort of resolution about a domestic violence policy at some point.
What is clear, though, is that what's been propagated, what's been put forth as the response, the official company line response to this second story, is lies, and lies on top of lies. With
careful, because they're going to start proceedings against us too.
Maybe some kernels of truth in there, because there is no clarity whatsoever. You can't just come out here and say the court followed our arguments and states the accusations are defamatory and false without providing any receipts.
Right.
Like, why should we take that at face value when still yet this camp has not provided any counter receipts at all? Like, we are not here to just take you at face value, sir, at this point.
Well, so does that mean that Olia's statements have been evaluated by a court of law for their truth? Does it mean possibly that the article itself didn't sort of leave room for doubt? And this story is extremely meticulous in saying allegedly, and she said it. Like, those are the things that will get you in trouble. And if you do ask for an injunction, they may be successful, right? If you failed to do those things.
Olia issued her own statement on Instagram saying, like, this is crazy. I'm not aware of any court proceedings. I was not brought to court. Nothing's been brought to me. And said that she is not afraid. She will not be intimidated by this guy. So,
we kind of assumed that this story would dominate the news cycle at least for a few days. And the thing is, Zverev saw the Tsitsipas bathroom break thing and saw his opportunity to deflect, to feed into something sensational that the media were more than happy to cover. And that is, perfect cover for him. Look at this guy. I've been telling you about Tsitsipas cheating since, Cincinnati or Canada? That when he went to the bathroom, he was cheating. And so it is just sick. Because, the accusations against Zverev are obviously more serious by orders of magnitude.
It was so clearly a deflection, right?
And it worked. The sad thing is that it worked.
Zverev has not played Tsitsipas in this tournament. So this game that we see played in press to get quotes where something happens with one person, you ask this person about it. There we go, right? This is how it can really be used in a nefarious way.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the gamesmanship accusations against Tsitsipas, because I do want to kind of draw a line here, because you are allowed to poke fun at this BathroomGate thing without being accused of soft pedaling on Zverev. Do you know what I mean? Like, human beings can hold two thoughts at the same time. You can be mad about two things simultaneously.
You can have varying degrees of anger toward two separate issues.
Exactly.
You can find levity in one and not in the other. You know?
Right. Because there were some Tsitsipas fans who were opportunistically saying, how dare you talk about Stefanos when this is going on? And I agree. What is going on with Zverev is disgusting, which we have talked about at length for a year. The fact that Zverev chose to deflect and throw Stefanos under the bus, that was his decision. That doesn't mean we stop talking about both.
Back to back on this agenda.
Right. So Andy Murray, Stefanos Tsitsipas in the first round. Andy was leading 2-1. Stefanos wins the fourth set, leaves the court for 8-9 minutes. I'm sure there's an exact number out there that most people know, but I can't remember. Andy could well have won that match if he had won the second set.
That could have been a straight set win.
That was in a tie break. Andy played incredibly well, especially with his age, his condition, his lack of consistent wins recently.
It's some of the best we've seen him move on a tennis court and for such an extended period since his comeback. And I think a lot of folks were surprised that Murray found himself in that position to be up 2-1 and that he could have won that match in straight sets against the world number 3, the current French Open finalist. Like, this is a big result for him. And he gets into that fifth set.
So Stefanos comes back from the bathroom after a while, and Andy's on the court now waiting. And, Stefanos dawdles and takes his time getting back on the court. So now people are booing. Andy is pissed. And like a dog with a bone, Andy just does not stop bitching about it.
When you say that, all I can think is that's the way love goes. Like a dog with a bone, burned by desire.
For the entire fifth set. He's yelling at the tournament referee on the sidelines in between games. And, this is Andy, right? There may be some tennis Twitter youngsters who haven't seen Andy in his prime. This is his thing. Like, don't act surprised that this is how he acts.
He's a miserable, mopey chirper. An angry dude on court.
Andy, of course, I believe, had reason to be angry, but at the same time, he really did let it eat him up. And I'm not saying that's what made him lose, but he was obsessing big time.
Yes, the obsessing was clearly way too much. But folks need to listen to Andy when he says, I can prepare myself mentally for this moment that I knew was coming as much as I possibly can, but there's nothing I can do to physically prepare my body 3-4 hours into a 5-set match to have to deal with cooling down for 10 minutes in a fifth set. There's going to be a detrimental effect on his body that he cannot control.
Right. But if the sport decides that is kind of a cost of doing business, if that is your conditioning failing you, then that's what the sport decides. But it hasn't. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so there, it's within the rules.
It is technically within the rules.
It's within the rules.
But players notice how other players behave, right? And players who are not related to the issue at hand know that certain players have a reputation for behaving in ways they deem unprofessional or unsporting. And so the problem here is not the problem is the rule, yes, but the problem is that certain players, Stefanos included, now come with a reputation. And so it's really difficult and possibly inhumane to say you can't go to the bathroom. That's not the issue.
Obviously, You can go to the bathroom. The issue is, obviously, you should make haste.
Sure.
Because it's not just going to the bathroom.
Even conceding that there was a very good reason somebody has to be in the bathroom for that long. Maybe there is. But Stefanos has done these things so many times that you'd be very naive to give him the benefit of the doubt every time now.
my point is, the way the rules are, you're just going to have to currently accept that these bathroom breaks are allowed until they're not.
Right.
So
right.
the thing that I can focus on, just like I was talking about with Krejcikova earlier, she needs to not go to the towel and make Muguruza wait while she's serving. Like that is non-negotiable. What should also be non-negotiable is that Tsitsipas should not be coming back from the bathroom to sit on the court,
go over to the cooler,
dawdle,
you know,
wipe himself, sit down, look like he has nary a care in the world that he has just sat down for a changeover. It's been 7 to 10 minutes. You need to make a beeline from the bathroom to the baseline to resume that match. That's where it becomes, he just does not give one flying fuck about the situation.
No, he really doesn't. Because I don't know what
because
it is
this
about
happened
him.
after Cincinnati, right? After
yes.
it's been publicly discussed in press and elsewhere that he has this reputation. So he knows, we know, Andy knows, that's why he was riled up. The whole world knows. But Stefanos don't give a damn.
Clearly he cannot be shamed. I mean, now his bathroom breaks before a deciding set are just tradition at this point. But there's a pattern of dishonest behavior that sometimes is at a low level, but it's there, right? It's tapping your racket while your opponent is trying to hit. And Shapovalov pointed this out in a match against him. It's these bathroom breaks. It's
the coaching.
His father and Patrick Mouratoglou coaching him constantly throughout matches. I mean, Tsitsipas is one of the only players who was fined for coaching at this tournament. It's, I mean, even something as silly and, you know, low impact as plagiarism is a symptom of dishonesty.
Bad character.
I'm not saying that.
Loathsome behavior.
I'm saying that, okay, you don't have to think this guy is a terrible dude, but it would be naive to think that these behaviors don't add up to a pattern of dishonesty.
And where that goes is through the locker room.
Of
where,
course.
as you said,
They're all gonna
where
talk
the
about
players notice, where the players talk about it. For the longest time, it was this narrative around Tsitsipas earlier in his career. Remember when he had that big run, I think it was in Canada, and then showed up in Cincinnati, and right after, and there was a big buzz around him. It was like, well, people are being mean to Stefanos.
And
they're not really nice to him.
I remember defending him because, you know, Nick was bullying him or whatever. And now I realize that Stefanos has sort of this aloofness about him, but he's never going to deflate or sort of win the crowd back because he appears not to care. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what it appears to be. And he doesn't really seem to have a lot of self-awareness about these things.
No, and he's done an incredible job of railroading his image in the last few weeks. It's wild. This Greek Adonis persona flitting through the ATP, just having swarms of fans follow him ethereally through the skies. It was this fairy tale thing with him for a while. And what that ended up being was a lot of blinders due to his whiteness and his looks, meaning a lot of benefit of the doubt that has been given to him over and over and over and over again because of who he is and what he looks like. Frankly, let's be real. And so now all the sheen has come off of Stefanos Tsitsipas. And I found for myself, watching this unfold, that the thing that really bugged me is that Stefanos does not give the impression or show at all that he gives a damn about other people on a tennis court. It's all about him. The self-centeredness is unmistakable. And in 2021, still in the middle of a pandemic, that is not something that I can allow to seep through my bandwidth.
Well, oh God. I mean, this is coming shortly after the whole vaccine thing.
Right? There's that too.
We kind of forgot about, And so,
Let's not forget that.
This is not meant to be an assassinate Tsitsipas's character, these past 10 minutes, but Andy Murray attempted to assassinate his character on live television. It was really something to behold.
On live television, and then in the press conference, and then the next 2 days on Twitter.
Yes, now that's what really surprised me was the next day. Because Andy Andy is a grump, right? And that's why a lot of people, including myself, love him, or one of the reasons. But
he's also a grown man.
Yes, and he's not somebody who picks on his colleagues. If he's asked something, he'll answer you honestly. But aside from the, what's his face, the everybody hates you incident, the Rasol incident, he's not somebody who goes after his fellow players on a personal level. I don't think.
Right. But I'm saying...
But he did in this incident.
He did, and it was, for me, too much and unnecessary. And a pylon and beneath him, frankly. Like, it was good for a laugh. It's like, whoa, did he really do that? And then he did it again, and it's like, okay. Like, this is entirely superfluous. You can make your point without being that snarky about it. And you have already made your point.
Yeah. Now, as a result of all that controversy in the Murray-Tsitsipas match, everybody was on high alert for any breaks, any whiff of gamesmanship throughout the week. So some people were noticing Jensen Brooksby's costume changes. He was like Diana Ross out there some nights.
He made it so easy because it was a different color shirt every time.
Yes, yeah.
White, red, black.
Obviously, Krejcikova, but man, the fans and the broadcasters were on high alert for this stuff.
There's nothing they like more than a clock to count down something.
Oh my
right?
God. Time since the last point, the length of bathroom break clock. And if you're coming from outside of tennis, you must think this whole thing is so ridiculous. Because how can a sport which presumably is led by smart people...
Presumably. What a presumption.
Mm-hmm. How have we not figured out how to handle this? Like, if, coaching is another thing.
We had a whole segment on that. We'll leave that for the rap show.
Yeah. But one of our listeners, Sumit, the other day on Twitter suggested, well, this is such a problem all the time with these strategic breaks. Why not just institute a break, right? Like a 10-minute break before a deciding set. That's an option.
Yeah.
And that's why I say with Murray, let's say you're a player who's going to be really hurt by cooling down more than others. If you enshrine a rule, that may actually just become part of the sport, right? If you can't kind of handle that cooling down period, then you are at a disadvantage. But it takes away the tactic. It allows both players to take a break. It allows fans to go get food and everything, because once a match starts, from experience, if you want anything, if you got to go to the bathroom as a spectator, you better move. And then you're going to be standing in the tunnel for a while before you're let back in.
And instead of the dread of watching your opponent and waiting for the mess to happen, you are then able to look forward to maybe having bicycles on the court, stationary bikes.
Sure.
To say that, well, I'm going to get through this fourth set. I know that there's going to be 10 minutes. I will then spend those 10 minutes on the stationary bike, keeping warm while I can block out whatever mess is happening on the other side of the court. And then we come back and we reset. Because this tournament has seen more 5-set matches than we've seen in forever. Like, it's crazy how many 5-set matches we've had. The narrative doesn't always have to be our 5-set matches good for tennis. It could be, how can we make 5-set matches better for tennis?
Are we managing them the correct way? If you institute like a sort of a mandated break, as if the heat rule is in effect or something, then one player doesn't have to waste all their emotional energy being pissed off at their opponent, right, for taking a break. And I'm not saying that's the perfect solution, but that's one example of a way you could address the issue. It just seems silly that this is what we're talking about, and most of the media are talking about for the first week of a slam.
Something that was actually well done and uplifting and good progress in tennis was the fact that we had the most LGBTQIA plus visibility we've ever had at a Grand Slam.
Yes. So we always call out the bad, but it's really important to recognize when folks just show up and do something cool. So Pride Day was this week at the US Open.
Tuesday.
And Guido Pella came out in rainbow gear. And it's nice to see a player do this and not have it be like image rehabilitation. He just did it to do it.
I think Maximo Gonzalez was another one who did it in his doubles match.
Yeah. Pam Shriver had her rainbow wristbands on court for the interviews, and a bunch of male players were asked about it and were asked essentially what would happen in the ATP if someone came out. Do you feel that the tour is a safe space for someone to come out as LGBTQ?
Felix, Stefanos, Medvedev, they all had positive things to say. And this is part of moving the needle forward. We are now at a place now where we're not just relying on Murray. We're not relying on us in Cincinnati a couple years ago asking Federer about it to get one of the really top names who have nothing to lose, presumably, to say something positive to move the needle forward. That needle has now moved. What we need to do now is to know specifically what it is that the ATP is doing to make their tour a safe space for prospective queer players.
And so this is one way to do that. It's to break silence, because silence is so corrosive. But a few of these young male players said, well, I don't know. There probably are gay players and we just don't know. And so that tells me that those people are still uncomfortable or still scared to come out.
And so the onus now is squarely on the ATP, as it is with everything. Everything. Felix told us that there is this survey that's happened where they're trying to figure out what the climate is on the ATP tour. I don't know what this survey is. Do you know what this survey is?
So let's do some reporting on this and get back.
Meanwhile, we know the ATP has not even dared to pander to our community during Pride Month. There has been no logo change. Like, it is the bare minimum for organizations to do during Pride Month, and the ATP has not taken that step.
Hi, gay. Happy Pride.
Right? Like, the money that could be made from Pride Month merch alone in tennis. Do you know how much of a hot commodity those Pride wristbands are? The Rogers Cup did it a few years ago.
And they gave them out for free.
Right.
But
the Rogers Cup did it
mine.
a few years ago, and they were selling like hotcakes for free. Like, people were going back in.
They weren't selling.
It was an expression. People were going back in like, hey, I came out again. I'm gay again. I'm double gay. So I can get both wristbands. We have a lot of disposable income. Well, not us, but a lot of gay people have disposable income. And that's an untapped market. That's a sinister way to look at it, but it's a fact. And the fact that the
if
ATP...
you need the profit motive to drive you to this, fine.
Fine, I'll take it. But I found it curious that some of these players talked about stuff that the ATP was doing behind the scenes that we just don't really know about, right? So let us know about it.
So let's keep our eyes peeled. Maybe we'll do some digging in the background.
Sloane only won 2 matches this week, but she was a star of the first week.
She was one of the best, most heartwarming stories about the first week of this tournament. Her draw was absolutely wild, playing her close friend Madison in the first round, then having to play Coco Gauff, who was somebody who's looked up to her. They practiced together many years ago when Coco was like 12 or 13 years old. Their families have been in this orbit kind of together for a while. And
to turn out just a boss-ass performance against Coco. That was incredible.
The match against Coco was supreme because it reminded everybody watching, oh, right, this is why she won the U.S. Open. The forehand is, I said on Twitter that it's sexual.
Let's talk more about that.
It is damn near erotic.
Talk more about that.
It is.
How did it titillate? As Lin-Manuel Miranda watches Brooksby with 2 set points up 5-1, 40-15 on Novak Djokovic.
Anyway, back to women's tennis.
Sorry. That was very off-brand of me just there.
The commentators always used to talk about Sloane as having easy power, right? And even though it got to be a cliche, you understood what it meant because Sloane could be in a point and you think she's sort of like loop-de-looping you and sort of stringing you.
We've said that a lot.
Yeah, that's what it is. Rope-a-dope. And then the forehand will just sort of unleash and explode, and the point is over. And that's what she was doing against Coco. Her movement was impeccable. It just seemed like everything about Sloane's game had just been upped by a lot.
And then she was wearing that kit.
I said from the beginning, I love the Nike kit. I know that the sort of cheerleader wrap dress thing is polarizing. I'm a huge fan. I thought Simona looked very cute in the yellow version.
I liked Sloane's version. I did not like the Riverdale version.
It's true. Oh God. You mean that pleated cheerleader skirt?
No, I'm talking about the yellow one.
No,
was
I think
yellow
it's cute.
and blue.
With
That
the
was
high
Riverdale.
waist, like the Empire waist kind of look.
Gold and blue. No, I did not like the orange one.
Oh, see, I thought Simona pulled it off. Sloane, she wore that blue, dark blue and dark green dress during the day, and it didn't really pop for me in like the bright daylight sun. At night, it looked amazing. I mean, she's gorgeous. Like, she's gonna pull it off regardless. But it just looked beautiful. So I was definitely a little bummed that Sloane lost in the third round to Kerber, but this draw was really, really tough. But aside from being sort of rejuvenated on court, she released this kind of essay blog post the night of the hurricane that talked about just a lot of frustrations about sort of being alive at this time in history. You know, she talked about how she engages in all these self-care practices and shares them, and at some point it's like, well, why am I still feeling this way? And it's because there's just a lot of fucked up stuff to deal with right now. And it's like not things that we're prepared to understand through, I don't know, through taking care of yourself, through eating right, to exercising. Like, when these problems are structural, you can only do so many things to help yourself. I thought it was beautiful. I was really pleased that she shared that.
Something else that happened in week one was an almighty storm. What we thought was going to be the remnants of Hurricane Ida turned out to be very much actual Hurricane Ida.
If that's just the remnants of the hurricane, oh my lord.
I mean, I grew up with hurricanes.
Right. I've never seen one, so...
I mean, it's been decades since I've been in a hurricane, but that was just crazy.
Yeah.
And the fact that the US Open saw this on the radar, saw this was happening, it wasn't like, well, you know, we might just try and hold out hope. Look outside and tell people to go home. Cancel your matches.
Right. Before it gets worse. Because if you see the radar, it's going to last quite a while.
And the New York City subway system was literally flooded.
Yeah. The streets were flooded.
Rats were having spa days in the New York City subway system. God. Swimming around. Doing somersaults. Synchronized swimming in the subway station. Like, it was... Like, we knew people who were on site that night, and we're just thankful they got home safely.
Yeah, I mean, I think the subway system shut down for the most part. And from there, you have Long Island Railroad or Ubers or cabs. And, I mean, you heard reports of people taking 3-4 hours to get from the eastern part of Queens to Manhattan. It didn't seem safe to be holding the matches that night.
As usual with this type of episode, there are a few things that we will save in our bag. We will leave them for a wrap show. We're going to talk about player vaccinations. We're going to talk about on-court coaching and the current incessant state of that. But for now, we're going to end our episode with a couple of plugs. We are now on Amazon Music, and thus you can listen to us on Audible if you choose. We also have hats, baseball hats, and quote-unquote dad hats with body serve logos on them.
So, in case you were wondering, so Redbubble makes these categories. A dad hat is like the soft top, so it like molds to your head. Mm-hmm. And the baseball cap is like a flat front, right?
It has a more rigid dome.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. What the young people wear these days, you know?
So previously, Redbubble was not producing headwear. They weren't doing hats. Now we have 6 different we have 6 different branded hats with the Body Serve stuff on it. Some of it just the logo, some of it with words on it with a logo. Check it out. And fortunately, a nice bit of synergy here with us having these branded hats now. Redbubble is now offering 20% off site-wide. So you can have any Body Serve piece of merchandise.
So that's our stickers, tote bags, change purse,
mugs,
t-shirts, tank top, all that stuff.
For 20% off if you use the promo code SHOPTEMBER. SHOPTEMBER. Quite the not so clever pun on September.
You're really gonna shade a coupon code? Anyway, September is the month of my and Beyonce and Serena Williams, even though she doesn't celebrate, birthday.
And a whole bunch of tennis Twitter folks. Like, it's a very popular day.
Yeah. And if you know B-Day, you know 9481. That's Beyonce's 40th birthday.
And for you, it's 9762.
Oh, hilarious. I am younger than Beyonce. Not by a whole lot, but I am younger.
We hope you get through the second week of this tournament physically, mentally, emotionally intact. We are The Body Serve. I'm Jonathan. You can find me on Twitter at tennis_John.
And I'm James at ElliotJMR.
2 L's, 2 T's. Go to redbubble.com. Just search The Body Serve. You'll find our stuff. Remember, Shoptember for 20% off. Thanks to all the folks who've given us reviews over the last few weeks. Those are so appreciated. And again, a reminder that that's one of the tangible ways, for free, just a little bit of your time, that you can help raise the profile of the show.
Thanks for listening. Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.